Hey guys, Legend of Super here. I thought since Final Fantasy 13-2 was released today that I would do a kind of video expressing my thoughts on kind of where the franchise is going, um, and why I still support the series even though it's taken kind of a controversial route. Um, but again, keep in mind that these are my opinions and you are entitled to your own. So if you don't agree, that's fine. But I'm just trying to help you guys know where a Final Fantasy supporter stands instead of, the people that just kind of gave up because they didn't like 13. Um, so let me start out by saying that a lot of people they're saying Japanese gaming is dead or dying or irrelevant because they don't like Square Enix. Um, they didn't like Final Fantasy 13. They didn't want to hear that Final Fantasy 13 was getting a sequel. So what they do is they like, oh, the Final Fantasy 13 sucked. Japanese gaming is irrelevant. That's what they say. So they're basically condemning the entirety of Japanese game development because they don't like Square Enix's decisions. Now, Square Enix is a big publisher, but it's not all of Japan. And Nintendo is still doing pretty well for itself. They're still releasing high quality games that lots of people enjoy. Xenoblade, perfect example. Perfect example of a Japanese RPG doing fantastic. It's being, regarded as one of the best RPGs of this generation. Even with Skyrim out and Oblivion and all the other games that were basically praised to the point where they were like godly that they released this gen. Xenoblade, to the real gamers are held in that same respect. So, and that came from Japan, and with Mass Effect and all these kind of games out there too. They're JRPGs, but I still consider JRPGs RPGs because role-playing games are role-playing games. It doesn't matter where they come from, um, but yeah, why do I support Final Fantasy? I literally beat Final Fantasy 13 last weekend, and I've had the game for over a couple of years now. I just never got around to finishing it. I would play it for a while, then quit for months because I got stuck, and I just got busy with other games. And when I finally got around to beating it, and I can see where a lot of the complaints are coming from, but at the same time, it's not nearly as bad as you people make it. It's the story, it's very complex for a game. It's got all these sorts of, it's got its own religion, kind of, with the fallacies and the makers and the deities and all this kind of. It's crazy, but at the same time, it's really not that hard to understand if you just kind of think about it for a second. It's not laid out in front of you. They kind of explain the story through the dialogue, like just by talking about it instead of having a big piece of paper that says this is how everything works in this game, which I like better that way. So, but yeah, the story wasn't terrible. I mean, some of the characters were annoying, like Hope and Vanille, but and the combat system. A lot of people say it's just auto battle, but it's not. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to use auto battle, and at the end of the game, you kind of have to do it, the manual way. Otherwise, you're gonna have a hard time beating some of the stronger bosses and monsters. So, but of course, most of the haters of the game didn't make it to that point. They judged the game before because they didn't like moving in a linear direction, even though they thoroughly enjoy Call of Duty, but which is the exact same thing. But you shoot stuff and that makes it okay, right? But anyway, yeah, lots of people judged the game before they finished it. I finished it, and while it wasn't the perfect game, it wasn't. Yeah, I liked it. It wasn't that bad, and I've played. My first Final Fantasy was Final Fantasy 4 on the DS. Amazing game, of course. Any Final Fantasy fan knows that. But in 13 is very different, and that's part of the reason why I still support Final Fantasies, because each game, except for the direct sequels, and even the direct sequels, I think Final Fantasy X-2 kind of changed itself. But each game kind of does something different, or tries to reinvent itself so it stays interesting. And of course, not a lot of people are going to enjoy every change, which is probably why 13 got so much hate, because it's kind of a more, yeah, of course it was linear, and they just didn't like the battle system for whatever reason. And but it's I enjoyed it. It is pretty. There is depth to the combat in Final Fantasy 13, but you got to get to. I'll give you guys that thing. I'll give you guys one thing though. You do have to play it for a while before the combat gets really complex. But once it does, it's very fun to play. Um, Now, Final Fantasy 13 2. Everyone was pissed because Kingdom Hearts 3 got kind of put to the side, so Final Fantasy 13 2 would be made. Um, I I'm personally, I'm not the biggest Kingdom Hearts fan. I've never really played them, so it didn't bother me that much. Final Fantasy Versus 13 looks pretty good though, and that was also pushed to the side. But I enjoyed Final Fantasy 13 story, and I don't mind, revisiting the characters and all that kind of stuff, because when you have such a huge game like Final Fantasy 13, I almost feel like it's a waste to, create this universe, this society, and all this kind of stuff, and then only have one game for it. So, sometimes I think a huge game, it's justifiable to have a sequel, so you can kind of, expand on the universe more. And that's just my opinion, of course. But I've played the demo of the game, and they have, they've added a lot of things to make it, the kind of more appeal to the traditional Final Fantasy fans. They've added more exploration, more side quests. They put towns in finally, and they put, like gambling and shit. I mean, they've done a lot of stuff to the game. But a lot of you guys aren't even going to give it a chance just because it has Final Fantasy 13 in the name, and that's pretty sad. They even added more to the combat through not only the action things, but they also let you use monsters now, which kind of adds like a Pokemon aspect to it. So you have to decide which monster you want to use. So that's pretty cool. For me, I support the series because it's still doing things differently. No matter it's if you put Final Fantasy 7 next to Final Fantasy 8 or Final Fantasy 10, the games are pretty different through storytelling and gameplay itself. So, I like companies that kind of take risks sometimes, and people aren't always going to like them, obviously, because Final Fantasy 14, no one likes it. Final Fantasy 13 has tons of haters, but at the same time, at least they try to do something different. To be honest with you, I didn't see a lot of differences between Oblivion and Skyrim, but you guys freaking love Skyrim, don't you? Um, but Final Fantasy 12 versus Final Fantasy 13, there's a lot of differences in that too. So that's kind of where I stand on it. I plan on getting Final Fantasy 13 2 as soon as I can, because I enjoyed the story, enjoyed the characters, enjoyed the combat, and that's just my opinion. So I'm going to get it. For all the frag heads out there that say Japanese gaming is dead though, or irrelevant, just because they don't like Square Enix, you guys need to kind of rethink your stance as a gamer, because you guys play lots of shooters and stuff, but shooters are actually the one that's getting stale now, to me. So that's just me though. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. What's your favorite Final Fantasy game? Throw that out there too, because I still haven't played them all yet. I've only played maybe about 3 or 4, and enough time put into it where I can actually say I've played it. I didn't just start it out for an hour and give up on it like people did with 13. So, but anyway, yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up, guys. Like, favorite, subscribe as always. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.